yes, this is a portrait party basically, and will it work for me? And my answer is that it will work for anyone. And, and I don't want that to sound like, cliche at all, or like I'm, blowing over anything, but it really can work for anybody. And, like I said in the beginning, for me, it was a second product line to what I do in the studio. But for others, it can be, this is the only thing that you do. You only want to work a certain number of days per month. It's very scheduled, it's very organized, and so you really can plan, I want to stay home with my kids and I really want to do photography, but I want a life. You can plan these portrait events and do them a couple days a month. I choose to do one event a month in my business, and a lot of the ones that I do now, I'm not even the shooter anymore. And with a system in place, it makes it very easy to bring in a second shooter to be able to handle different product lines in your business, and we'll talk about some of that as well. But the answer is yes. A portrait event is going to work for you no matter what your product line is, and whether it's a second thing or the main thing, or how you want to incorporate it. We'll talk about some different ways that you can make it a part of your business. All right, why should I even have a system? Does anybody wonder about that? And I think we've talked about it a little bit, but systems really are the key to running a business efficiently. And I don't know if any of you guys have read the book, The E-Myth, but years ago, and way back when I was first in my real business, I had done photography for 4 or 5 years, but I opened up that first studio in 2000. And not to say that the business before that wasn't a real business, but I was all on location and at home with my kids and doing it part-time. And in 2000, I made that decision, and getting into the burnout quickly and all those things. And someone recommended the E-Myth to me. And the E stands for entrepreneur. And we all go into business thinking we're an entrepreneur because, well, we own a business. We started a business. But the reality is that most of us are not entrepreneurs. Most of us, especially in photography, are artists. We're creatives. We have a different mindset, really, than the business owner, than the entrepreneur. And the true entrepreneur is someone who actually has multiple streams of income. So it may be home decor along with your portrait studio. It may be children's clothing if you work with kids. It may be jewelry. We sell a couple of lines of jewelry in my studio. And one of them is strictly photo jewelry. It's Katori, and they're amazing, super great quality photo jewelry. But I also sell another line of jewelry that's called Jewelcade, and it's a multi-level thing like Pampered Chef. And the reason that I do that is because as an entrepreneur, I want access to as many people as I can have access to. That doesn't mean that all those people are going to be the right person for my business, but I at least want them to know who I am. And because if they're not right, they might recommend someone else who is. And so by offering Jewelcade, which is something they do have a photo charm, but it's in general not even related to the photography business, but it relates to my target client, who is, Laura is my target client. You totally fit the profile. And if you came into my studio, I know you would love Jewelcade jewelry. So it's something that you can see on the shelf. You can say, oh my gosh, I love this, tell me about it. And I can offer it to you to host a party and do it in my studio. You could do it in your home if you have a home studio. And it's just a way to, bring more people into your business. And by hosting it in my studio, I'm allowing other people to see what we have going on. And, so it's just that bit more of networking. So creating a system is something that no matter what part of your business you're doing, if you have a system in place, and I tangented off again from the E-Myth, but the E-Myth, one of the main things that the E-Myth talks about is running your business as if it is a franchise. And that's a very, very hard concept for us as small business owners to wrap our heads around. Most of us as photographers would never consider selling our business. Our business is us, and how do I sell Lori Nordstrom Studio without Lori Nordstrom? It doesn't make sense. But if I can put business practice into place as if I were to sell it one day, then I have a much more streamlined process that I can continually follow. If I have a bad day, I've got the system to go back to. If I, have a broken leg and I'm in the hospital for 3 weeks, the system's in place so that the people in other people in my business can do it or step in. And that's what has happened with Real Kids is by having a consistent system in place, I can now bring another photographer into that area of my business when I really want to concentrate on the high-end family and children clients going into homes, doing these custom wall designs and different things. And while we've pulled that into the system, it is about 20% off of our regular prices. We have got packages, so so that's different. It's just kind of a different product line, and I'm really enjoying having somebody else that's photographing those events, and still being able to manage that and bring in the profit from that. So, in a nutshell, even if you never plan on bringing another photographer, never plan on selling your business, a system is going to be great for you, for your schedule, for your family, for your profitability, lifestyle, all of it. And I think we should have systems in every area of your life. And I'll tell you, it's not easy for me, and I know it's not easy for a lot of people. I don't like planning. I like things just to happen. And so it's a hard thing. But when you start, when you get back to that, writing things down and saying, what's the most important thing for my business and my family, you got to make yourself. And that's what happened for me, is when I got to the point where, I don't have an option anymore. I have to run this like a business. I have to know my numbers. I have to, understand what it takes to run a business. I have to have a system in place, or none of it happens. So that's why. So that was the end of the last segment. And now we'll go into this, defining your niche. And I threw this image up here because, and I don't even know if you can see it, but one of the things that I'm known for is the black and white hand-painted portraits of children. And a lot of times these days, I get flack about it. Even these days, even though this is where my bread and butter is, and I have a very profitable studio, I still get nasty comments on Facebook and, different places. Selective color, ew, and whatever floats your boat. But, it really is the reason we can all be in business. We're all good at different things. We're all known for different things. Some people love high color contrast. Some people like grunge. Some people are simple black and white, But my roots are, when I started photographing my kids and was shooting film, I was printing those images on every medium that I could possibly find, and also painting them with every medium I could find. I was using oils and charcoals and pencils and everything that I could find to hand paint the images. And that's how I fell in love with photography. It was with the hand painted portraits. So going digital, one of the first things that I wanted to do and figure out was how to create a black and white hand painted piece that looked like my old stuff. And so that's what I've done. And even over the years, it's gotten even more subtle and even more subtle. I like just a hint of color in the images, but it's still why people come to me. And I know that blows some people's minds, but but that's my thing. So I shoot everything in black and white. High school seniors, it's about 40-60, and even if I sell a wedding, I'm selling them a black and white wedding. I do shoot color, but that's what they're buying, is a black and white wedding. And so it is very, very niched. And there's some real value to that. And as we go through, I want to encourage you guys to really think about, narrowing down, what are your favorite subjects to photograph? Think about that. And you guys all have these questions in your workbooks. But really think about what it is, what gets you. And I know for me now, I'm enjoying high school seniors more and more as I go. But I used to. When I started, my niche was black and white hand-painted portraits of children. The end, period. I didn't do anything else. And it was a huge benefit to me at the time. I didn't know it, but it was a huge benefit because that's what I became known for. And that's what I loved, and and it's continued on to this day that's my love and my passion are those kids. After 3 or 4 years into the business, I realized I better start photographing newborns, or because they turn into kids, and if somebody else photographs a newborn session, I might miss out on the opportunity to photograph the children. And so I started my newborn business. And then a few years later, I'd been in the business for a while, and my babies and children were growing into bigger families. Then all of a sudden they were high schoolers, and so it grew and evolved from there, and I enjoy the whole process of it, but I'm still very niched to the children's market. And so that's what I want you guys to think about, is really what you love to photograph. And, I know for me a couple years ago, I would have said, if a high school senior called and I'm sick, I need to cancel and reschedule, I'd be like, yes, 2 hours in my day that I have back, and it was no big deal. But if it was a baby or kid session, I was so looking forward to that, I'd be disappointed. And, and so that's kind of how what do I get really excited about going out and photographing? And for me, it's the kids, and everybody else is going to have a different answer, a different story. But think about it. What do your friends tell you that you're good at? And back to that validation thing that Kristen mentioned, that we all want to feel that. And a lot of times that's why we start in the business, is because somebody saw the pictures that we took of our own kids or our dog or somebody, and they said, wow, that's so amazing, will you take pictures of my kids? And so we all start that way, and we start into it, and of course we do it for free and do it all the wrong way. But we'll talk more about that. But really, what are people telling you? What are your friends telling you? Oh, I love the way you did this. I love the way you did that. And think about those things. And then this is key, I believe, in defining your niche and just defining your personality. And that turns into what your style becomes, is it becomes a part of you and who you are. So think about 3 to 5 words that define your personality. And this is a hard thing. It's a hard thing to sometimes to say something good about yourself. But if you can sit and think about it, and I meant to tell you guys at the break because I wanted somebody, I think Janice, I think you could do it.
All right, off the top. 3 words that define me: I'm passionate, I'm fun, and I love to develop relationships, and that's why I love working with kids, even when photographing them. So just that intensity and that relationship, and then that I get to connect with them and make them feel good. Because I love when photographing a child, if a parent is photographing a child, they're like, oh, mom's got the camera. When another person is photographing a child, they're like, wait, I'm special. This person's paying attention to me. And I love that reaction. So I think that's my relationship.
So passionate, fun.
And I don't know how to say that for the relationship building.
Relationship driven is good.
Yeah, I guess.
And I'm going to say a little intense.
Oh, intense, yeah, a little bit.
Okay. And so, so when Janice is able to define that, and I knew you would be able to, because you do have that personality, and when you're able to define that and write down those key cores, those key words, you can pull from those words when you're putting your marketing together, when you're putting together your phone scripts and your communication process with someone. When I'm working with kids, I'm quiet, and I'm down on their level, and I'm not jumping all over the room. So my marketing and my communication to a mom is going to be different from yours. Yeah. You're going to say, your kid's going to have so much fun. We're going to have a great time together.
Do you think it scares them? Because I do. Like, me and the kids, we just have, we party together.
Yeah.
We put on the music, we dance, we have, awesome time.
And I think that's awesome. And that means that you are using your personality strengths in your message. Okay. And that's the point of this. And I feel that is so important. And, anytime somebody asks me, well, how do I know when I have a style? How do I, it's when somebody can look at your work and say, that is this person, that this person photographed that. And that hit me hard years ago. I was in a room with several photographers. It was Vicki Toffer, who's been here before, Sarah Petty, who's been here before, Sam Putsch, who's been here before. Who else was there? Julia Woods, Jeff and Julia Woods. That may have been the group of us. But anyway, we were sitting and we were defining product lines for each of us for Marathon Press. We each had a little, product line within Marathon Press for Bella Graphica. And as we were sitting there, we all had to pick one word that was going to define our product line. And we all went around, and it was so easy to point out to each person, this should be your product line, the name, the word that described it. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, this isn't just the name of the product line. This is the definition of this person. This is who they are, and it's their work, it's their marketing, it's their message, it's all of it. And it really hit me how powerful that is to really be able to define what your strengths are, what your personality is, and then use those things as you market, as you communicate. So anybody else want to go?
along the same lines. Really passionate about this. I'm really driven. When I'm shooting kids, when I'm working with kids, I have 2 kids, and when we were raising them, my household was incredibly silly, incredibly goofy, and so when I'm working with kids, that's kind of how I am. And it was funny because you mentioned yours, and you said that you got down with them and you were kind of quiet with them. I'm like, wow. Well, obviously it works, but it's just your approach.
How do you do that?
It's your approach. It's your approach. I'm more along the lines of completely ridiculous and goofy and silly, and also I usually have a conversation, not with the moms, I have a conversation with the kids, and I'm just talking to them and maybe being goofy and silly, and and then grabbing that moment when they're really not expecting it.
Yep.
And so, which is, when I'm looking at your pictures, I'm like, okay, these aren't staged. These are grabbing a moment when they're not, when they're not ready for it. So, so passionate, silly, funny. I think humor, again, it's probably all in the funny, silly humor thing. But and then driven, really driven to, get that shot that just makes you go, wow.
Yeah, I forgot driven. I think you and I are kind of similar.
and probably are, and really, and I don't want to say that driven part is more of a man thing. However, I can also see that tying into being technical, really caring about how your camera works and being a professional in that regard. And again, not to say that that's a man thing.
It's okay. I'm getting used to this thing.
That's awesome. So, but when you think about that, I haven't seen you guys' work. But I'm going to imagine that that you, Janice, probably have bright, vivid colors, and you're you have kids laughing and jumping and doing fun things. Where for me, I ask kids to jump, but it's because of the expression that happens when they land.
When they land,
And so so it's a different thing, and working that personality into what you do. And and for you, Ernie, I see, you probably have very technical images with that driven personality. Ernie came from the world of being a corporate guy and then went to being a chef, and you're probably have a lot of attention to detail. And so that probably comes through in your images as well. And even with photographing kids, I imagine that before you get silly, you make sure all the details are in place.
Absolutely. It's funny with kids, I also shoot a lot of sports, and there's a lot of similarities. I've realized, because you're waiting for that moment to happen and then grabbing it. And with kids, I found it's no different. You're waiting for them to not just look at the camera, but do something, react in some way, and then grabbing that picture. And so, in sports is exactly the same kind of thing. So it's interesting. But yeah, absolutely. The technical piece, get it all ready, and then let it rip, have fun, and get a great picture.
Awesome. Are there any internet personalities?
Yes. Oh, yes. Go ahead. Okay, Josh Rand West said, fun, friendly, and entertaining. Let's see. We also had, Susan said, whimsical, quiet, and creative.
We have Laney5411 who says, random, random, people pleaser, and sensitive.
Okay.
Interesting
So,
combo.
and so you can kind of almost get a feel for these people just with those 3 words, and we're all going to communicate differently. Our marketing is going to be a little bit different. If I got on the phone with a mom and talked about an experience like Janice is going to give, I'd be giving the wrong message. When she comes into my studio or I come to her home, she's going to be thinking I'm this, wild, crazy chick that's going to, Sorry.
I put that on my website. Wild, crazy chick. I don't know if that's
perfect. It all almost reminds me, going back to that room that we were in with those people, it kind of reminds me of the Sarah Petty sort of personality and work and marketing. It's the bold, fun colors and the bright, whimsical frames. She uses wild sorbet as well, but even more with just the bright colors and fun. She's marketing to her clients that your kid's going to have a great time. They're going to have so much fun. We've got a trampoline in the studio. We got, and where if I gave that message, it would be the wrong message. I want to let my clients know your child is going to feel very at home. They're going to have a really wonderful time. And, and I take great pride in the fact that You know, my moms will call me or they'll email me or Facebook me and they'll tell me, you know, Jacqueline wants to know when she gets to come back to see Lori, you know. I also want to instill in them that, you know, if they even tried to take their kids somewhere else, you know, their kid's going to say, wait, that's not Lori, you know.
Lori?
And we should all have that kind of goal with our clients, but different personalities are going to project different things. So think about that, and that's in your workbook again, so you can really think about that. That's a little bit of homework for you guys tonight, maybe, to sit in that and think that through as we're planning marketing and client communication and your style.
And I think along with all that, patience helps a lot. I think even like for someone that is very technical or very entertaining, I'm like jumping around and going crazy too, having fun. But being patient is, I've found that is a key too.
For working with kids,
yeah.
I get that all the time from them. You're so patient.
Yeah.
Well, and even if that's not one of your top 3 or even top 5, yes, we have to incorporate different things into the work that we do. I know for a lot of people, they have no patience in other areas of their lives, but you get into a camera room and that patience comes because you are technical or you are driven or you are, you know,
We want
passionate
that shot.
about
I'm
yes.
patient because I want that shot.
Exactly.
And I gotta keep going until I know I've got it.
So it might not even be the patient word that fits. It might be one of those other things that allows you to be, you know, to appear to be patient. So, but that's great, and I can see you being a very patient person, Maylee. So, you know, and that's great too. If you're photographing newborns, that's definitely something to communicate to your client. You know, I've got all the patience in the world. This is going to take a while, and you don't have to worry about a thing. I will take care of everything. You can take a nap. You know,
Exactly.
you know, and really communicate those strengths. Good. All right. So there's those strengths, and you know, and I mentioned this before. You know, and just another thing to think about as you're thinking about strengths, really think about the strengths and not the weaknesses. And a lot of times we dwell too much on those weaknesses, or we give our strength that you know, it's my strength to the, what did I say?
To a fault.
To a fault, thank you. And you know, and it's a normal thing, I think, a lot of times for people to say, you know, I'm this to a fault, I'm that to a fault. Get rid of that language and think about what your strengths are.
So Lori, would it be considered a strength if you're called Miss Bossy Pants by one of your parents? Because I was the other day. And I thought, yeah, I'm just in control and having fun with it, but Miss Bossy Pants was kind of a...
And that was an actual parent that said that?
In a loving, kind, sensitive way. So.
In a loving, kind, sensitive way? Yeah. Well, yeah, then that's a positive thing, right?
Yep.
But, you know, and I think, you know, to give that a word, you don't want to have bossy or controlling to be your word.
No.
However, you know, sometimes we have to pull from those areas as well to have control of a situation, you know, and to not be run over or, you know, a lot of things that can happen. So I do think that can be a very positive thing. And then what makes you happy? You know, and that's the last part of that. But, you know, I'm going to go to that, back to that. You know, all of us get burnout and drugged down, and you know, in the digital world, we're all, you know, I mean, it's a crazy place to be, I know for sure. But you know, one of the things that happened to me several years ago, I way back in probably 2002 or 3 made the decision that I was not going to work weekends anymore. And now we do these portrait events once a month, but other than our portrait events, my schedule in the studio is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 11 and 1. That's the only time I shoot. And I make those times available to my client. I'm very specific about it. Would 11 on Tuesday be better or Thursday at 1?
How about school? What school times?
When they come back with school times, and again, this is all finding a yes answer for your client, but making it be a yes as well for me. So when we're talking to a client, we get them excited about booking a session, we go to the calendar, and I let them know, we've got Tuesday at 11 available or Thursday at 1, which should be better? Well, you know, my kids are in school. Do you have any weekends? You know, Janice, when's the last time you had a family portrait done?
I was pregnant with my daughter.
And how long ago was that?
5 years ago.
5 years ago. So this is pretty important to your family.
Yeah.
Would you consider taking the kids late one day to school or getting them out early one day?
I guess we do it for dentist appointments,
You
don't
do
we?
it for dentist appointments.
What a
You know,
revolution.
and that is actually the exact way the conversation goes, because what happens is, in someone's mind when they call, well, my kids are in school.
Yeah.
And so don't you do a Saturday? Don't you do a Thursday night?
Well, that's what I'm struggling with, is because I'm here up in the Northwest. It gets so dark now by 4:30. So I'm like, how do I get that appointment done, the shoot done before 4:30?
Yep. And so
That's
you
just
decide. You decide when you're
revolutionary.
going to shoot. For some people, the right day might be Saturday. You're with your kids the rest of the week, and you shoot on Saturdays when somebody else is with your kids. For somebody else, it might be, you want to do a once a night, Thursday night sunset shoot. That's great, but you decide. Don't let your client decide. And again, it's a very normal thing, especially when you're starting out, to, you were so excited somebody's calling, and, well, when would you like to come? And we let them take complete control of our schedule. And so, so think about that. I was not happy anymore going out and shooting on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon. It actually kind of made me mad. And so I decided, you know what, that doesn't work best for my business and my family.
Interesting.
If I'm not happy doing it, I got to figure out what makes me happy. So it's 11 and 1, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Same thing with a dad. A dad is, well, my husband has to work. I'd really like for him to be part of the session. He's very busy and very important. And I'll ask the same question. How long has it been since you guys have done a family portrait? And that is really, honestly, typically the answer. The minimum time has been a year, because nobody comes for another family portrait in less than a year. Yep. So even if the answer is, well, it's been a year and it's just time to do it again. Great. This is really important to your family. Do you think your husband would consider? And by proposing the question in that way, do you think your husband would consider taking a longer lunch one day, coming in, at 11, or taking a late lunch and coming at 1? There are not many women who would say, absolutely not, he's completely inconsiderate, And especially when you've just said, this is really important to your family. I think it's so great that he wants to be involved, and I, would really love to get him here. Do you think he would consider taking an extra long lunch? And honestly, for me, if the answer is absolutely not, because he's a jerk, then I really don't want to work with him, and that's fine. So in the beginning, and I will tell you this, in the beginning when I made this decision, I did set up 2 days on my calendar. I've worked with other people to do it once a month. Do whatever works for you to be able to get to your life and your schedule. But for me in the beginning, I did feel like I'm going to have people that are going to freak out that I'm not doing Saturday appointments anymore. And so I set up a spring date and a fall date. And when I had that person in my mind, I had to have these times so that when somebody said to me, well, don't you work on a Saturday? Can I have a Saturday appointment? And I walked through those steps and they still said no. Then I could say, you know what? We have March 15th available on a Saturday or October 7th, which would be better. And then I'm still giving them a yes answer, but it's yes for my business, yes for my family. And what happened was I needed that in place for me, but nobody took me up on it. They either came during that time or they didn't come and they didn't need to.
How long do you work on those days? Are you doing consecutive shoots? Like, are you just working an entire day from 11 till whenever? Or
no, 11 and 1 are the appointment times. I take 2 appointments a day,
so
Tuesday,
you're taking
Wednesday, Thursday.
6 appointments a week?
So 6 appointments a week, yep.
Wow. I have 3 days a week to myself I have 3.5 hours a day, three times a week this year. That's my first time I've had a long time. It's awesome. And so I've already got my hours in place, and just hearing that that's what you're doing. I need to jack up my prices and get a studio. That's what needs to happen.
Well, and you know what? And we all, and you don't have to have a studio. There are benefits to every single situation. But you probably do need to raise your prices, I can tell you that. Because everybody pretty much is in that boat. But I'm going to go back to the situation, wanting a studio. And thinking about the best situation for
I don't feel a huge need for it. Okay. It's just like it's a novelty that I would like to. Eventually, my house will become the studio. I already have some plans in place. But,
good. Okay.
But I'm not discouraged or I don't feel. What's the word that I'm looking for? I don't feel intimidated by going into people's homes. That's usually what I do. I'll do outdoor or in home.
Do you shoot in your studio or do you shoot on location?
I do both. Yep. remind me to go back to schedule. But I have a large studio again. However, I went back to having a studio and buying a building when my older two were out of the house and I had one left at home. I'm a single mom, it's just me and Jackson left. And so at that time, I made the decision to sell my home, buy a building, and we live upstairs. I put an apartment upstairs, just, it's for me and Jackson. And so, so it made sense all on paper. And I think that's the biggest thing is when it comes time to add on to the house, to buy a retail space, to rent a retail space, whatever it is, it needs to make sense for all the areas of your life, not just, I want to be that photographer that's got the studio or has the, pretty this or that. And, like I said before, in that beginning space, I was all on location. And I learned to communicate the value to my client. And that value is going to sound something like, I'm going to come right to you. I'm going to be there to help you choose clothing and personal props for your session. I'm also going to be able to walk around your home and make suggestions for where to hang your portraits. And so you can communicate the value of what you're doing. In a home studio, I had a home studio for several years, and learning to communicate the value of that was a difficult thing for me. I had a beautiful home. One of the things that was so important to me, and back when you saw the pictures of my family, my kids and me, one of them was by J.B. Salee, who you guys may have heard of, on the beach in Hawaii. I was there with the Salee family, and we traded portraits. I photographed their family, they photographed mine. The next one of us in the chair was by a friend of mine, photographer Patty Farr, and she's in my same town. And I just want to say, while I have this moment, that if you are a professional photographer and not hiring a professional photographer to photograph your family, you are missing the boat.
I just did that. I do, not as I say. I mean, you do as I say, not as I do, but you do it the other way.
We have to communicate to people how valuable we believe portraiture is. And so that is one of the huge values of having a home studio, is that when somebody walks into your home, they can see how important photography is to you. And excuse me, so that's one of the things that I learned to communicate when I had a home studio was, first I would tell people, I would get a little worked up about, maybe everything's not perfect or in place, and and usually it typically was, but to get out of that mindset that, if there's something sitting out, I have to say I'm sorry for it or whatever, I would actually tell people on the phone when I was talking to them, you know what, you're going to feel right at home when you come in. The kids are going to be comfortable. I'm going to have snacks and drinks for them. And you know what, I'm not even going to clean for you. And I would tell them that in a joking way to say, you're going to feel so comfortable, but it also took all the pressure off. If there was a toy out or, whatever, it's okay. I just told them, you're going to feel at home. I'm not even going to clean for you. And so, just learning the language to be able to communicate the value of where you are, so valuable. And again, bringing them into your home, I would also tell them, you're going to see how I decorate with portraits. And, I'm going to walk you around and show you different areas where I've got images of the kids displayed. And that, also took off the pressure from me from having to have a bunch of product out of other people's kids in my house that I didn't really want on the walls of my home, And so it was my kids, and I actually communicated that to them before they got there, that you're going to be able to walk and see around and see how I decorate with the portraits of my own children. So all those things are valuable, and all those things are things you need to communicate. And back to schedule, I said it, so I reminded myself, which is what I started out to tell you guys was several years ago, I'd made this plan. I was only going to work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 to 1. And I had a gentleman call the studio, and all of his kids, he had 3 kids that were all in different states now, and he was flying them all in with the grandkids for his wife's 70th birthday or whatever it was. I don't remember exactly what the milestone was. But he was flying them all in, and it was a surprise. They were coming in from like New York and all these places. And so he called and he said, the only day that they're all going to be there is on this Sunday. And I, it's this very special time, and they chose me to do this, and they came as a great referral from another family who I'd done business with for quite a while. And so I really wanted to do it. And so I made the choice and said, absolutely, let's schedule this. Well, part of what happened was it was going to be a surprise for his wife, so he did not want me calling the house. Normally, I'm calling and doing a consultation call, I'm communicating with them, or planning, designing, all these things, and I couldn't do that. So not only was that not there for the communication with the client, but it also wasn't there for my mindset. Normally I'm really invested into this session before I get there. And so I was driving to this session on a Sunday afternoon thinking, I don't want to be here. I was in the worst mood ever. I don't want to do this. This is terrible. And I got there and I photographed the big family grouping, and then I photographed the individual families and grandma and grandpa together with the grandkids, all this stuff. And last thing, I was just letting the kids run around, do their thing, and just photographing kids. And I looked over, and this grandmother is standing there with tears just running down her face. And it was like, you could have just hit me with a baseball bat. I was like, who do you think you are to come into this session these people have planned for and, surprised this mom with, and, this man had put so much effort into, and here I am with a bad attitude. And it really changed my perspective on going into sessions. And even though that was a Sunday session, it was a really good lesson for me in planning for my daily sessions, in that, you got to get rid of the junk. You got to focus on that person that's in front of you and how special and important this session is to them, that they would actually hire me to do this. They would hire you to do this. And, if you can really put that into perspective, it also takes away all the weird feelings we get about selling. It also takes away all the, the time constraints that we put on ourselves, all these things. We get into these negative jumbos. I gave them all my policies and procedures and they still did this, Get over it. We're people, we're building relationships, and build that relationship and it will all come back to you. So happiest when, thinking about really who you want to photograph and what makes you happy. And, I knew for me that I'm going to be happy in doing those sessions when my head can be in the game. And part of that for me is having a very planned schedule, having a calendar that my kids know, this is when I'm working, this is when I'm not, this is when I'm, out of town, whatever, and this is when I'm here for you. All right, so think about, as you've thought about what your personalities is, your strengths are, what you're good at, what other people are telling you you're good at, and to take that one little step further, what makes you the only? And that is something that is so key in today's marketplace, because we all can be photographers. And so if you can think about why should somebody come to you? And I always want to propose the question that if you can't define why someone should choose you over photographers A through Z down the road, and Kristen said, there's a lot of these in my area.
You can't just say
there are a lot of these in every area.
You can't say that.
Did you say?
And I don't mean that.
Just because they suck?
No, you can't say that.
No, I can't. That's not what I mean. But it's just like the constant battle of defining yourself aside from the masses.
Thank you. Yes, and so thinking about, since we can't say because everybody else sucks, and there honestly is.
I didn't mean that toward anyone that I know. I just want you guys to.
But I do always, not to be negative at all about what you said about there being so many in your area, but honestly, it doesn't matter if I talk to somebody in LA or Michigan or Florida or London, it does not matter.
They're all going to say the
Every
same
single person. There are so many photographers in my area. I mean, everybody says that. I am in a town of 5,500 people, so it's a little tiny Midwestern town, and I live on a little downtown square. It's very, very Mayberry,
My town.
Yeah.
5,000 people.
So same type of thing. In my town of 5,500 people, there are 3 photographers on our town square. So, and those are people that are actually, then one of them's right off the square. But, somewhat legit, right? There's also, in our town of 5,500 people, 1,052,000 people who are photographers in a town of 5,500. And I do feel that way. And so constantly we have to say, why should anyone choose to come here? You know, you got to ask yourself that. And if you can't define it, you cannot expect for somebody else to define it. So think about, you know, kind of finishing one of these lines. And you don't have to finish them all, and it may not be one of these things, but, you know, I'm the only photographer that, whatever. I have the only location that offers this. I have the only one that offers such and such prop. You know, maybe you have a vintage car, or, you know, who knows what, but it may be something specific that, and honestly, a studio these days is it's not normal. So someone with a studio could, you know, make that observation that I'm the only one in the area that actually has a studio. That's not enough. There still needs to be exceptional customer service, exceptional product, exceptional experience while they're there. You know, all those things have to happen. But think about the thing that is going to get them talking when they leave. And that's what it's all about. You know, that's how we can all grow our businesses, and when somebody leaves and they're so excited that they tell somebody else. So what makes you the only? There's a book called Zag, and kind of the premise of the book is when everybody else zigs, zag. And so look and see what, you know, back to this, look and see what everybody else is doing around you, and then do something else. You know, what can we do to be completely different and stand out? For me, it really has been the 152 photographers down the street are not willing to take the time to frame their clients' portraits. They're either sending them out with a CD, which we've already talked about, or they're expecting them to find their own framing or figure out what to do with it all. And they're selling small prints, you know, and that's the other thing. Selling images online, almost 100% of the time it's going to be, you know, I want a 4x6, a 5x7, and a great big 8x10, because that's all anybody knows. You know, if we're not leading them through the process and doing something custom for them, that's all they know. And so just offering the framing and the design consultation and those things are really one of the things that I believe has allowed me to stay in business and be profitable. Now, once every other photographer down the block is framing and, you know, doing all these things and going into to do design consultations, I got to figure something else out. But right now, it sets the studio apart right from the first phone call, because we are telling them what we specialize in and what we can do for them. And there are not many moms, no matter what their budget is, there are not many moms that can't get excited about decorating their home. So, you know, so it's something to talk about, and it's something to stay up on, you know, design trends, and get in the magazines and watch the home shows and all that. So pulling that all together, make that style and that list of 3 to 5 personality traits that define you, make that a part of every single thing that you do. And, you know, whether it's fun and crazy and passionate and, you know, put it into everything. Put it into every single part of your business and client communication. Again, this is for me. This is my niche, is being able to, and these walls here are just part of Preview. These aren't client walls. But that's one of the great things about Preview, is that that sales presentation software, is that these rooms are built in. So even before you ever own a Wild Sorbet frame or ever take a picture or have a picture from a client home, you can build these wall concepts and put them on your blog, put them on your Facebook and website, and give people ideas and let them know, this is what I specialize in, creating something beautiful for your home that you can see and enjoy every single day. And, you know, and this is exactly how, again, these are just exported straight from Preview, so this is what it looks like in Preview as you're designing with them. And you can show them, right, what it looks like in their home. The clients that we have coming tomorrow, they've actually sent me their home views, and so we'll be able to build these collections for them